He's been at the front row and the driving seat of the industry's evolution. Mr. Ashish Nagar.
Putting whatever you've learned into practice, right? You start getting into those more difficult conversations that happen.
Your journey is like a one-day cricket match. A lot of people may be able to relate to it better if you talk about in the language of cricket.
All this comes wrapped around with how do you communicate with the client, right? It's absolutely essential to get those bearings right and ensuring that you are talking to the client transparently.
Hey everyone, welcome back to FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I'm Charu Mehra, and today, we have a treat today. Because every now and then we meet someone who hasn't just built a career, they've built industries, teams, cultures, and playbook that other follows. And today's guest is exactly that kind of a leader. Please welcome Mr. Ashish Nagar, a man who has spent over 3 decades shaping the world of business process management, from running operations the size of a small city to leading P&Ls north of $100 million, to managing teams across India, the Philippines, the US, Jamaica, and Colombia. He's been at the front row and the driving seat of the industry's evolution. He's led over 9,000 seat global transition across BFSI, travel, utilities, and healthcare verticals, transformed businesses with AI and automation long before it was fashionable, and built trust with clients at C-suite level across continents. But what really sets him apart is this. In a world obsessed with speed, he's built success through discipline, clarity, and people first leadership. So, if you've ever wondered how large operations run, how transformations succeed, or how leaders stay grounded while managing massive responsibilities, this conversation is going to hit you home. Mr. Nagar, welcome to FaceTime with Leaders. How are you today, sir?
First of all, thank you so much, Charu, for having me and for the excellent introduction. I'm humbled, right? So looking forward to this conversation.
Great. I'm looking forward to having an interesting conversation with you today. Mr. Nagar, you've built a long and diverse career commencing hospitality and then venturing into global business process management space across domains, telecom, financial services, travel, and US healthcare. You've led very large teams, major transitions, and high value client relationships. But before we explore the different areas of your work, I would like to begin with something very simple. Could you kindly take us through your career journey in your own words? How did it all begin? And what were the key experiences that shaped you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Charu, you'll be surprised how I got into hospitality because that was my first spark, right? I had to choose between AFMC Pune and the IHM National Council examination that was being held. It was being held at the same date, same day, same time, right? So I had to take a call, and lo behold, I took the call and I started with hospitality. So that's how it all started, right? But having said that, hospitality really taught me customer centricity. It taught me discipline. It taught me rigor, right? That is something that really has been a foundation stone as far as I'm concerned. As I moved on to other organizations and other roles that I was doing. Telecom, for that matter, it taught me speed, right? And BFSI kind of taught me structure, compliance. So, if you put all those together, it was kind of putting the jigsaw in place,
Yes.
right? And managing client relationships, across these different verticals, managing the operations. I held roles where I have managed P&L, which is north of 100 million US dollars, right? Um, Client relationships, mining, farming of businesses, getting into newer landscapes, newer markets. All that really comes with the fact of, what I said initially,
Right.
that of discipline, of that of customer centricity, and that of, really that following that rigor, right? It's no rocket science. It's really basic, right? But the overall, the gist or the summary is like it's like a one-day cricket match, right? And the memory is very fond of, I'm very fond of cricket as well. So with India winning the recent World Championship as well, right? So if you look at it, if I were to split my 30 plus years, first 10 odd years was more, understanding the conditions of the pitch, understanding what the role is, understanding what the organization is, how do you interact with people, both internal, external. And then, following up with the next 10 years where you start putting whatever you've learned into practice, right? You start getting into those more difficult conversations that happen, right? And I've been through some ups and downs as well, some good roles that came my way, but because of restructuring that happened at the global level, I had to kind of look out for different opportunities, which I did. And I'm fortunate to get that experience as well, because then it really rounds you up, because it's not always a path that's going up, the graph which is going upwards. There will be ups and downs, the
Absolutely.
peaks and troughs. So you need to be able to navigate those peaks and troughs, right? And that is how you build more resilience into yourself. And I think I'm fortunate there, right? And the last 10 years, I think I was very fortunate to get into something very niche, something very specific, which was US healthcare, right? And from there on, it was, clearly not just about managing large operations, multi-geo, multi-location, multi-geo, but it was more in terms of getting into, the quasi-tech space as well. So it was, I moved from, pure play operations to transitions, and then getting into technology adoption and operational risk management for the organization, which is spread across the 5 geographies that I've mentioned, or you mentioned earlier. So, that's how everything kind of came, along. And yeah, here I am. I'm being able to converse with the board level, individuals or leaders, both at the client side as well as, at the internal side of things. And then also looking at how you manage large teams, right? How do you manage your P&L? How do you manage your technology? How do you manage your recruitment? How do you manage your training? So it, kind of everything kind of, puts comes into play. So yeah, that's briefly how I've moved on and where I am today.
Wow, thank you so much for that. That was a really great analogy that you made. Your journey is like a one-day cricket match. A lot of people may be able to relate to it better if you talk about in the language of cricket. And the way you moved across industries with that blend of curiosity and courage really stands out. And I also appreciate how honestly you shared the tougher parts too. It gives such a real sense of the person behind the role. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure, sure.
Now, I'd like to move on to some areas of your work that many people hear about but rarely get to understand from a leader who's lived and shaped them. Mr. Nagar, you've led operations for almost 9,500 people with full P&L responsibility, which is a serious mandate in any industry. From your experience, what does it really take to run a business unit of that size? How did you ensure performance, stability, and people management at the same time?
Great question, Charu. I've been asking myself that too. No, on a serious note, to manage a business unit of that scale and size, you actually feel the weight of responsibility of your people,
Right,
right? And they're working at various times of the day, right? Given the nature of the business, we are working for US clients,
right,
K clients, Australian clients, whatever the mandate is. And there is that element that kicks in. So that's one part of the equation, right? The other part is your hiring of the workforce, right? Not just at the front line, but also at the leadership level, right? Training, right? Both soft skills as well as process, right? Then you get into infrastructure, you get into technology, you get into the facility, the building per se, and so on, right? And then you get into the actual, managing of the operation, right?
right,
So you start with transition when you're transitioning a process, and then you hand it off to the production or, the regular, process that kind of kicks in. So
right,
it's if you look at it is a multifaceted uh, uh, role that actually entails these different pieces, right? And you as a leader have to understand one is how these different verticals are linked to each other, right? And the other aspect is how do you ensure that your people, your team is also understanding that and leveraging what you already have.
right.
So managing the team across different geographies, across various time zones, I think it becomes going back to that discipline, that rigor, right? That structure. You
Right.
need that. And now comes a fourth element of governance, right? Because it's a massive scale.
Mhm.
And you need to be on top of your financial metrics. You need to be on top of your operational metrics. You need to be on top of your people metrics,
Right.
right? So given that, as I touch upon that, there are ups and downs. It's not always a hunky-dory state of
Situation.
affairs.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's like at one point in time you're managing 500 plus metrics, right, for various clients, and
Right,
uh,
right,
and there are processes, there are sub processes, and so on, the different business lines that you are serving. So you need to understand the nuances of that. The compliance kicks in, your state level regulations kick in. If I'm talking about US, right, there are country mandates that are there. So all that is said, how do you prioritize? Because
Mhm.
obviously, we can't, as a leader who's sitting right up there, you need to be able to prioritize,
Right.
and you need to look at and isolate, what is working well and what needs attention.
Mhm.
I consciously choose the word attention and not that something's going wrong,
Wrong.
because it is that theme, it is that how you manage your team, right? So if you come up with constructive feedback to the team, has always worked for me.
Right.
It's always worked for me,
Mhm.
right? It's not that you don't take the hard call, but you take the hard call, but you give opportunity to your team to get their bearings right, right? And
Right.
if not, coach them, tell them how things could be done differently. So managing or putting structure, right, again from my BFSI experience, so putting structure, having a good quality management system, having in deployed COPC in various organizations that I've worked in, ensuring that I am looking at, and not just me but my one downs as well, are looking at those key areas, right? Those key in COPC jargon we call it fatal errors,
Mhm.
right? So what are those fatal errors? Where are they occurring? And
Right.
what is it that we need to do to make sure that we don't repeat? right? All this comes with, because we are handling client information, we are handling client data. So all this comes around, wrapped around with how do you communicate with the client, right? It's absolutely essential to get those bearings right, and ensuring that you are talking to the client transparently, right? And giving that feedback, I think is very important to the team. You can't hide. If you hide, it'll snowball at some point in time.
Exactly.
And then
Right.
it's the cat that is, loose against the pigeons. Yeah. So you have to make sure that you're not in that situation, right? So, and again, so matrix is one aspect of it. The other is, we in the business process management space, we are purely dependent on the client, right? So the client volumes, for example, the volumes that are coming our way, which we transact, which we work on, right? Could be a voice, could be non-voice, could be a blended, could be anything, could be analysis or whatever that we do for them. Now, given that, if there is a kind of a slump in the market, for example, US, there's a slump, and there is something that has triggered, and those market dynamics kind of have led to we not getting a particular piece of work. Right. Then what do? Because we factored that in our budgets, right? We kind of do a quarterly rolling as well. Now we then need to kind of just step up and say, okay, if this is not coming our way, where can we compensate it with? And what is it that we can do differently? So, I think getting the domain experience, individuals from the team, the client or the market-facing teams that we have, and a combination of the two is a recipe that has worked for me. And get into those areas which the client has probably not even thought about, because we have the domain experience, right? So it's the breadth and the depth, right? So if we take the breadth and then we go deep, and then we take the next chunk, we go sideways, and we go correct, and that's how you kind of build your business, and that becomes sticky, and that's how you are able to maintain your revenue run rate and your profitability as well, right? So that's how we've done, and in fact, that's how I've done that, and that really helps. And one thing I really want to mention here is what Jack Welch did. He came up with a 4E philosophy, and which, given my initial days at GE, that really stuck on with me, right? Which is energy, energize, edge, and execute. Wow. So that's the mantra, right? And that is how, what you even tell your one downs, and they tell their one downs of, you have to demonstrate. It can't just be about matrix. It is about building a culture where people feel, even when the numbers are massive, but they really, are there. And that balancing of performance while maintaining a human touch, I think, is key for any execution. Absolutely. Right? And then you deploy cutting edge technology, and that's where the edge comes in, right? One of the E's, where you are deploying, consciously thinking of areas that you can deploy technology, which will give you that edge from your competition, from even, the trust that you gain from your clients, right? And execution goes without saying, because all this needs, really hands-on execution. Absolutely. So yeah. Absolutely. That's something I just wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, this was so fascinating to hear. It sounded like an orchestra, there are different instruments, different parts, and you're just managing it. It sounded so wonderful. And the scale you operated at sounds so intense, yet incredibly energizing. And the way you describe those challenging moments brings the entire ecosystem to life. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
You've been part of major technology shifts, from RPA and automation to Gen AI and data-driven operations. Every company talks about digital transformation, but not every company gets it right. From your experience, what separates a technology project that truly transforms operations from the one that just sounds good on paper? And what is the most important thing leaders must get right while driving tech adoption in people intensive industry?
Great question, Charu. I've struggled with it honestly in the past, right? Um, and I'm talking of 2018, 2019 timeframe. That's where my digitization journey started for US healthcare, the operation that I was managing. But to your point, many tech projects, they look fantastic on paper, and they collapse during execution, right? So why does that happen? And what is it that, we leaders need to kind of make sure, that we are on top as well as the team who's actually executing is on top. So it's more about consistency in my mind. Right? It's about, what you do from a coding perspective, you can do, whatever you can do, right? But I think, again, that requires consistency. It can't be patchy.
Right.
Right? And maybe, before that, it's important to highlight what is the problem statement, right? What are we trying to address, right? What, if we do this, who will get impacted? Right. Okay. What will be the impact, right? Is it covering all the business scenarios that we as operating teams, usually get faced with? I think those are the questions that need to get answered upfront. And that's where I'm getting transactional here, but that's where the business requirement document comes into play, the BRD, which is a dreaded word, right? But it's key. It's key because that is the basic design of what the technology deployment would look like, or ultimately would get deployed, right? So the development of that particular tool or technology is very dependent on that BRD, and that BRD is not a tech game. It is, somebody, and if I'm going back to what I said earlier, right? So you need domain experienced individuals who understand the different ins and outs of the process. Right. What are those exceptions that creep in? How do you tackle those exceptions? I think those are the scenarios that need to kind of built in that BRD. Yeah. Right. So that to make the tool, to make the technology that much more robust. Right. And then at the end of it, are we getting the ROI? Whatever that we've done, is it giving that benefit? Right now, if in our case, it becomes more from like an efficiency benefit, right? It could be a productivity benefit, it could be an efficiency benefit, it could be a financial benefit at the end of the game. But that is in later down the line, right? Let's downstream. But upstream, getting the act together and working very collaboratively. I think it's that collaboration is key here, right? Of what one understands as the process, what one needs to deploy in that tool, and develop accordingly, and then get to the state of where it starts running, right? I'll give you an example. So there was a large deployment that was happening in part of my transition role that I was heading. Now, it is a tech deployment. This was an intelligent content processing tool that was being built for a particular client with a particular kind of work that we do in the healthcare space. Right. And all good things happened. The rigor was there, the discipline was there, the coding, everything, right? The use cases were there. But what happened was that at the end of the cycle, right, once the entire thing is done, the data has to get uploaded back into the client system because we work off the client system. And there was the glitch. Because we did everything here, but we did not envisage as to how the data would, kind of transfer back into the client system. So there was a bottleneck there. Right. It eventually got solved, but it took time, right? But in the interim, you had to do something because the project can't go astray.
Right.
Right. So we said, okay, you know what? We can put some or deploy some manual resources who are experienced enough, who can eyeball those cases and make sure that they upload it manually.
Right.
Right. So again, there could be batch uploads, there could be whatever, but it could be a manual effort. And if that were to happen in sync with the client system, at least for the time being, the problem was taken care of. And
Right.
because it needs a prioritization in the client's environment as well, right? Their IT systems, their security systems, and so on. Now, that takes time. So by the time all that was being done, this was a relatively, jugaad option, as we call it, right? But that was done because and then gradually. But what happened thereof is the client really understood our intent. They understood our the engagement that came from our side, our
Right.
earnestness to get the job done.
Done.
I think that really struck with the client, and it was great to have that sort of a rapport and relationship building up. So, yeah, I thought let me just give you an example, but I think transformation, succeeds. And to your question, right? It only succeeds when leaders balance, empathy and ambition.
Right.
I want the best of technology deployed in the shortest amount of time with the smallest amount of cost. Utopia. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
So one has to, be present to that fact, right? But at the same time, it's about how do you build that stability? You have the ethics, you have a sustainable solution, which builds the confidence of the people.
Right.
And people, not just the user. I think the user is a very important persona here. Actually, they're doing in and out those transactions, and it's impacting them. So the user has to be borne in mind, and then the ultimate user is the end customer.
End customer.
Not the client, but the end customer.
End customer.
Right? So I think if you have that vision clearly drawn out, and that starts with your BRD.
Yes.
As to what your user base is, what they expect, what is it that we need to do, and how do we deploy things, how fast can it process. That's where the infrastructure discussions come into play.
Right.
And so on. So yeah, I think that's what we need to kind of look at as leaders.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Nagar. This perspective was so incredibly insightful, and it brings so much clarity to what real transformation feels like on the ground. And also the way you describe those near make or break moments truly paints the complexity behind tech adoption. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure, anytime.
You work directly with clients at C-suite level in US, UK, and India. Expectations in this industry can be very high. Speed, accuracy, cost management, compliance, all at the same time. How did you balance tough client expectations with the realities on the ground, especially when operations were spread across countries and time zones?
Excellent question. I've been dealing this for about 34 years now, 35 years. So as a leader, you are intersection of C-suite expectation and frontline reality, right? Speed, accuracy, cost, and compliance, right? They pull you in different directions, but you have to deliver.
Right.
So the aspect of how you come with a common thread cutting across these areas, right? I think is critical, right? And one very basic point that comes to my mind is even, time zone. So given the nature of our business, we work with as I told you, various countries, clients spread across the globe. Now, at one point in time, I was literally following the sun, right? So India morning IST was Australia. India afternoon evening was UK.
Okay.
And India evening night was US. So literally following the sun. And it's important why I say that, and I'll come to that in a bit. But those 5 areas that I mentioned about speed, accuracy, cost, compliance, I think all that will at some point in time come into shape. But the trust that you build with your customer, I think, is key.
Yes.
Right. And like you and me are also customers in our daily lives, right? So we expect certain things from as we go to, say to a retail store, or
Right.
nowadays we're doing Blinkits, and the
Right.
quick commerce industry is in play now. But there is a set of expectations that we have as a customer, right? So you have to put yourself in that shoe of what he or she would look or want from me, and accordingly act. Right. So it's fairly important to understand what they want and respond in time.
Yes.
That response is of great significance, even if it is, I tell my team always that even if it is a holding response, it's not a computer generated response.
Right.
Because one can differentiate
Do
that.
that.
Right. But it has to be a response. No, okay, we're dealing with this, right? And we will come back to you, right? It doesn't mean that you don't come back. You have to come back in the time frame that you set out for. So it's that responsiveness. It is that how you prioritize, how you respond, and how do you communicate. I think these 3 put together really, get yourself in a good footing with your clients, right? There will be difficult clients.
Agreed.
And there will be 10-15% of them, and they'll be nasty at times.
Yes.
But I can't, get egoistic there as a leader, as a manager, as a executive team member. I cannot. Right. Because, and this is where my hospitality gig comes into play. Right. So there is a requirement, there is an ask from the client, right? And you need to kind of deliver that. Now, how you deliver is your lookout. He or she is not bothered about how you deliver. It needs to get delivered on time, quality, every time. Right. That's the simple ask. Right. And from our side here, it becomes from the organization perspective that all this is good, but you have to make it a profitable venture. You can't be a loss-making venture, right? Your people have to be happy. You can't have too much attrition happening, right? So it's kind of juggling all those 5-6 balls in the air and make sure that you are the best juggler in town, right? and get to that. But yeah, it's. Let me give you an example. So there was this senior VP from the client side. Late at night, this was around, I distinctly remember, right? In this case, it was around 1 a.m. India time. So pretty much the first shift was getting over, the US first shift, and the second shift was coming in. And there was an immediate ask to get to a particular case, because that case was kind of escalated, not just in the client environment, but also in the outside world. So we had to kind of get to the details of the case quickly. So again, who was there on shift matters. So there was a manager who was on shift, and that's what we want. We want relevant people to be present. Right. So with that individual getting into the thick of that particular case, drilling down deeper, understanding what happened, what was the issue. He did an excellent analysis, right? And there was certain areas that we were at fault as well, right? But clearly, totally, it wasn't our fault, but it was a mix of things, right?
Right.
So how he was able to, get deeper into the woods, take all the information out, make sure it was, the relevant analysis was done, and it was presented to the client with what we could do differently next time, because we do not want it to happen again.
Happen again.
And some things that we could have done better, there's something that the clients. It was really appreciated. Middle of the night, once she had closed her shop, right? I'm talking of this senior vice president. She emailed us, right? So that is that response that I'm talking about. That is that the most ethical way of getting back to the client, saying that, okay, now this is what it is, and being transparent, and then moving forward. I think that really helped. That really, really helped. So, long story short, I think it's important to, communication is key, right? Upfront, you need to kind of make sure that information reaches. And one quote I would say is, which I again learned in one of the customer service orientation programs in my hospitality world, right? The flow of information should be faster than the rate of experience.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I leave it with that.
Really, that was really powerful, Mr. Nagar. The way you describe those war room moments and how you navigated them really brings the challenge to life. And your description of turning a cross time zone crisis into a steady rhythm shows practical side of leadership, not just the glossy theory but real tactical choices. And you talked about intent in the previous question. This actually shows that the client, that what our intent is to solve the problems, to be there for them. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. All right, so the next round is our rapid fire round. Mr. Nagar, now we move on to a quick rapid fire round. These are short questions and even shorter answers, whatever comes to your mind first. Ready?
Yep, ready.
Right. The first one. What's the first thing you do when you start your day?
Reading my newspaper with my bed tea.
Wow. Okay, tea or coffee, what keeps you going?
Tea.
Tea?
Tea in the morning, yeah.
Yes, I need my tea in the morning. I can't begin my day without it. All right, one hobby that helps you unwind after a long day of work.
Workout.
Workout?
Yes.
You are a post-work workout person?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Let the
Next one.
steam kind of just
Sorry?
let the steam go. Yeah?
Let the steam go. Okay. A book or leader who has influenced your thinking the most?
I referred to him earlier in the conversation, Jack Welch.
Yeah, I was about to say that. You referred to someone. Yeah, Jack Welch. Okay. One work habit you never compromise on?
Ownership, accountability.
Wow. Wow. All right. Next one. Your favorite travel destination?
Maldives.
Ah, you've been there before?
Yes.
Nice.
Love to be back.
All right, next one, a movie you can watch anytime.
Not one movie, but I would say any spy thriller. I love it.
I love spy thrillers as well. Okay, next one. One app you use the most on your phone.
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. It keeps you in touch with your friends, your work, everything. It's WhatsApp.
Everything.
Next one is a value you consider non-negotiable in leadership.
Integrity.
Wonderfully said. Okay, the last one for the day is, if you had to describe your career in one phrase, what would it be?
So I'll break it up. The acronym LEADER.
Wow.
Okay. So L is listen, energy, which you have to, create.
Yes.
Action, demonstrate, walk the talk, right? Energize, and write purpose.
Wow. Wow. And if that is your mantra, I'm sure people working under you must be so happy. Wow, that was great, Mr. Nagar. Thank you for playing it along, being so simple, quick, and insightful. And I really like doing this round because it helps people see the person behind the professional. So
Right,
I really
right.
enjoy doing it. Thank you for
Same
being
here,
so
same
candid
here.
with us. In the last few years, we've seen businesses across the world face challenges around governance, ethics, data security, culture, and accountability. With your experience across multiple industries and global operations, I'd like to hear your perspective on this. Based on everything you've seen in your career, the
Mhm.
transitions, the client work, the scale of operations, and the responsibilities you've handled, what do you believe is the biggest lesson for leaders when it comes to governance and doing the right thing?
It's a very important question that you ask, right? So not just for me, but for different set of leaders in different situations. Uh, See, governance is something that is really key to being a successful leader,
Right,
right? Now, governance, what is governance, right? It is what is the mechanism that you create, right? Or the structure that you create, right? For the delivery that's happening, for example, right?
right,
All the operational metrics that you need, right? All the financial metrics that you need to be on top of, all your people matrix that you would want, right? All the client data that you are at the end of the day responsible for.
right,
Uh, how are you, catching up with your teams, right? My example, teams spread across 5 geographies, right? So there has to be a method to the madness. It can't be, just, one off. So getting into that, going back to that, that word that I said, rigor,
yes,
right? So getting back into that rigor and that rhythm of how and what you need to measure. So what gets better is what gets measured,
yes,
right? So with that theme in mind, you also need to ensure that you are getting the relevant data points
hmm,
rolled up to you and to your teams, which means that there has to be a mechanism where all this is getting stored somewhere.
true, yes,
It can't be Excel sheets because you're not, in today's day and age, it's ridiculous, right? Once upon a time, 15, 20 years ago, we used to rely on Excel sheets only. We still do
right,
it at times,
right,
but what I'm saying is to manage such a large operation spread across geographies, across clients, across domains. So there has to be an enabler, and
hmm,
technology is that enabler,
right,
right? So making that available to your teams, I think is key because
hmm,
information has to be there with them, snap of a finger,
agreed,
right?
agreed,
Because we have to respond to our clients on a snap of a finger.
right, right,
So how do we do that? Now, whether it is my hiring processes, whether it is my training, right? Whether it is my transition, whether it's my business as usual, as we call it, production, right? How do you make sure that all this is, because each one of these will have a different metric,
right,
right? So somebody's output is somebody else's input, right?
input,
So from hiring to training, from training to transition to BAU, right? So how do you put all this together? I think is key. And
yes,
then make sure that this loop is there because you need constant feedback too. It
yes,
can't just be left saying that, okay, I have data, I'm managing it. It doesn't work that way, right? So there has to be feedback that comes to you, whether it is from your team, whether it is from the frontline staff, whether it is from your customer, whether it is from your peers, wherever it comes from. Right. And then you kind of make sure that you dovetail all that into meaningful, actionable insights, as we call it, and then we move from there. Right. So I think that this is one part of the equation. The other part, I think, for leaders, I think it's very important to, and this is something that keeps me awake at night, right? Not that I'm not awake, because anyways, the time zone makes sure that you are awake, but it's data compliance, right? You need to be completely on top. Your entire governance framework should be such. It should be a very resilient framework, right? It has to have your risk management, not at the enterprise level, but also at the operational level.
Right.
Right. And both have to talk to each other. Right. Then you have your the data that is coming in and out pretty much every day. Right. And we in the industry that we are in, we are dealing with client data all the time. Right. So there has to be the framework should be such that there is no possibility of any breach or leak. It has to be pretty watertight. There could be malified intent, right? But how do you make sure that you counter that systemically? Right. So there will be people with the malified intent.
Agreed.
Right. But you need to isolate them, capability of isolating them, and making sure that you isolate the whatever transaction was, in motion. Right. So somewhere you have to track it, somewhere you have to curb it, and that is only possible via technology and systemically. There's no other way. Right. There still could be a breach. There still could be a breach, but then it becomes a question of reputation. It becomes a question of responsibility. It becomes a question of financial exposure. There are n number of questions that come into play. Right. So I think that is something that one has to really deal with very, very strictly. And that's zero tolerance, let me tell you that. Absolutely. It's zero tolerance. If we see, Tom playing a truant on these lines, then Tom is out of the equation pretty much immediately. Right. So it's zero tolerance there. So how and what you have developed as a system and how you communicate it to your clients is also very, very critical. Right. Because they have to see you as somebody who's one step ahead and he or she who's thinking forward. Right. And because I'm thinking in a forward manner, I'm able to, curtail or contain that situation because of the that frame that we've deployed. So I think that is something that I think we leaders should definitely be wary about.
And as you said, walk the talk. And if the leaders are going to display this, it's going to be passed on to the people downstairs, people up, above them. So thank you for that. That was a really grounded view of governance, and it was really powerful. And I really like your willingness to share that there are practical fixes that can that gives listeners a real reason on accountability.
Right.
So, thank you for sharing your views on that with us. Mr. Nagar, you're now associated with Directors Institute. May I ask, what motivated you to join the Institute and how has it influenced your outlook on leadership, governance, and decision making at the board level?
To be honest, it's not made a difference right now because I'm still, part of the journey, right? But the important question is, why did I take this, right? And this is given the fact that I've spent about 34, 35 years in the corporate world. even looking at for myself in terms of what I need to do next, right? How can I help other companies, startups, or some companies within this business process outsourcing space with my experience. And just my experience won't let me or take me there, right? So I need to upskill myself and upskill to a point that I'm able to then be eligible to be in the board, and because that's what I envisage going forward. So now, whether as a strategic advisor to the board or whether it is an independent director, I think now it is that level of uh, engagement that I'm looking at, right? And that is the reason why I opted for Directors Institute. And what I will get definitely is not just being a certified independent director, but also I think ESG is great because there's a whole module that
Module.
they have on ESG, and something that is really picking up, right? A lot of funding for from private equity depends on ESG, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
there's a lot going on in that world. So understanding ESG, how how does an independent director work, and then getting into some other qualifications as well, that will only upskill me. I think that's the reason why I joined Director Institute. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. So, you know what, after the kind of extensive experience you've got, not only in terms of years, but in the knowledge that you've gained across domains, I think that is a boardroom is the natural next step for you.
Right.
So, I wish you all the best you know, for achieving your goals there. And it's really inspiring to see that after having such an experience, you're still looking to enhance your knowledge and move on in your career. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that and wish you all the best for your future.
Thank you so much, Charu. It was very nice talking to you.
Same here, Mr. Naga. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure listening to your journey, your insights, and the clarity with which you approach leadership and operations. What stood out throughout our conversation is how consistently you've emphasized discipline, responsibility, and people,
Mm-hmm.
qualities that remain at the core of sustainable leadership, no matter how much the industry evolves. To our listeners, I hope today's discussion gave you practical perspective and a deeper understanding of what it truly means to lead at scale and to do so with integrity. This is Charu Mehra thanking you for tuning into FaceTime with Leaders powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. Until next time, stay curious, stay committed to learning, and continue building the kind of leadership that creates impact with purpose. Thank you and take care.